Thierry Henry.
He's a phenomenon, he's unbelievable.
He really is. He's the best in the world by a mile for me at the moment.
Was robbed of the Ballon d'Or.
When journalists are involved and vote, they vote whatever they want.
It can go both ways. It can make you or break you. I decided that it was going to make me.
Thierry Henry was born on August 17, 1977 in Les Ulis, a banlieue on the outskirts of Paris.
My dad, the first thing he did say is, he put me in the air. He said, this baby will be an amazing football player.
His parents had made the long journey from the Caribbean to France to build a new future for themselves.
My parents came early to France, which it was the dream for that era, to go to the continent, to go to France to have a better life. When you arrive in France, make sure you don't make any mistakes. We need to fit in. We don't want to get sent back.
But in the narrow grey street canyons of Les Ulis, the dream of a better life was not easy to realize. The housing blocks, once intended as a symbol of progress, quickly turned into a place that was difficult to leave.
Just a normal neighborhood, gangs, drugs, fights. But I grew up in a modest household. You don't want to grow up there. My upbringing was rough, strict. For me at the time, it was the best. Because in my neighborhood, I had, first floor, a guy from Senegal, bottom, guy from Portugal, fourth floor, a guy from Mali. I grew up with diversity. It made me understand a lot of things, acceptance, living with others, to coexist.
For Thierry, life in Les Ulis was the beginning of a path shaped by countless challenges. Even at a young age, when his parents separated, he stayed with his mother together with his brother.
My parents already divorced when I was 7, so dad left at one point the house. I have an older brother that's 7 years older than me, so his friend, him, used to protect me.
Football quickly became his lifeline. On the dusty pitches on the banlieue, his extraordinary talent showed itself early.
When you have a ball for the whole neighborhood, that's when you become skillful, because you play against 60 men, you have to protect your ball. It's only one ball for everybody. The desire, the commitment, the hunger that you can have, you get it in the street.
His father not only passed on to Thierry the love of the game, but also the conviction that football could be a way to break out of the bleak everyday life of Les Ulis.
My dad was the first guy to introduce me to the game, and that was my first thing, yeah.
I think my dad was saying it more than I was saying it. He was pushing me. I just wanted to make him happy, to be honest, that's all.
And I do remember the first time he took me on the field just to strike the ball.
While other children spent their days playing and roaming through the housing estates, Thierry was often on the football fields with his father. His father, who himself had dreamed of a professional career, was determined that his son would fulfill the dream that had been denied to him.
It was always a mission. I was on the mission to fulfill his dream, to please him. I was programmed to succeed. And I know if I want to make him happy, it will be through football.
The very first thing that I wanted to do was to please my dad. I think like every other kid. I just wanted him to be proud of me.
With a hard hand, but also with great dedication, he guided Thierry through the first years of his football development. The young Thierry played for the local clubs OC Les Ulis and US Palaiseau, and always tried to please his father, who stood on the touchline at every match.
He always wanted more. If I scored 4 goals when I was young, he wanted 5. If I scored 5, he wouldn't have been happy because he wasn't 6.
I grew up with having the fear of not being good enough for my dad. But the little me never heard it. It was always what I didn't do. And what was the most difficult thing for me to do ever was to please my dad.
But it was not only the father's strict hand that shaped Thierry. His mother, a quiet but strong woman, also had significant influence.
I grew up with, there is food on the table, so therefore I love you. It wasn't so much communicated by hugs, by I love you. I didn't see a lot of love, affection, hugging. Like, it's more of a be rough, anger. You're a man, be strong. Don't cry.
While his father encouraged sporting ambition, his mother ensured that Thierry grew up with discipline and respect. This mixture shaped him not only as a player, but also as a person.
For a very long time, always my thing was to please people. I was always looking for that approval. My happiness and my sadness was always through people. expressing my feelings was very difficult, apart rage and anger. I didn't know how to deal with that. It can go both ways. It can make you or break you. I decided that it was going to make me.
Henry began to develop his enormous potential. Despite family challenges, he did not let himself unsettled on the pitch and soon attracted the interest of bigger clubs. But the path there was not free of obstacles. The coach wanted to protect Henry from being overworked, which his father did not understand. The father was firmly convinced that Henry should always play because he was the greatest talent. These tensions intensified when Henry was finally accepted into the renowned national training center Clairfontaine, a moment of pride for the family, but one that also brought new challenges.
I left my house, I was 13. Clairfontaine is a preschool, pre-formation. So one weekend you come, they take the best 20. Then the weekend after that, you have the 20 from that place, 20 from that place, 20 from Paris. Then you bring it down to 40, you bring it down to 20, and eventually, obviously the 20 goes to that school of Clairefontaine. You're already dealing with the pressure of succeeding because you're trying to enter Clairefontaine. Already here is competition.
Je devais rentrer à Clairefontaine. Le football, c'était OK, mais pas l'école.
Clairefontaine at that time was not yet the legendary place it would later become, but it offered a unique opportunity to further develop the football talent of the young Henry.
Commencer à être aussi plus sérieux au niveau de l'école. Clairefontaine, c'est l'Institut national du football. Tu es supposé apprendre le football, à jouer au foot.
Together with the other future stars like Nicolas Anelka and William Gallas, Henry formed an extraordinary team there. But it was not the institution alone that shaped Henry. His tireless ambition, his will to improve, and his understanding of the game made him one of the best of his generation.
Dealing with the pressure of succeeding is very difficult to deal with. It does have an impact on a human being because you didn't have a normal young life.
If I can say, you have a gift right from the start, but you need to work on it.
That's the only attribute I had when I was young. I was fast. So I had to work really hard. I had to work really hard every day.
Getting into Clairefontaine was a hard-fought success. Henry belonged to the few chosen who went through an intensive training phase. During the week, he lived in the boarding school, far away from the constant control of his father. There, under the guidance of the coaches, Henry shaped not only his footballing skills, but also his character.
J'étais programmé à comprendre le jeu, mais sans fondation, sans base, la maison s'écroule. Et l'INF et Clairefontaine m'a donné cette base pour pouvoir être prêt.
After 2 successful years at Clairefontaine, Henry moved in 1992 to FC Versailles, the preferred destination for academy players. In his age group, Henry scored more than 50 goals and impressed not only his coaches, but also scouts from big clubs. It was obvious that Henry was an exceptional talent, and so it was only a matter of time before AS Monaco noticed him. The club Thierry Henry moved to was something special in French football, the Association Sportive de Monaco Football Club, because of the small population and the special tax advantages that allowed players to receive far higher net salaries than other French clubs. Many doubted whether ASM could even be considered a real French club.
You know, you have a casino, beautiful women, beautiful cars, beautiful city. The scenery is just outstanding.
1 out of 3 people that walk the streets is a millionaire.
When Henry arrived in Monaco in 1993, the club was an established competitor in French and European football. And Arsène Wenger, the coach at the time, had taken the club onto the international stage.
I knew him when I was in Monaco. He was one of my youth team players, and I made him start in a professional team as a central striker.
Henry began as expected in Monaco's under-17 team, but quickly skipped the usual step of playing in the reserves because Wenger enabled him to make his debut in the first team after less than 2 years. This was extraordinary and a sign of Henry's maturity and determination.
I want to win at all costs, and anything that I do, I want to win.
At the end of the day, nobody's above the game.
Back in the days, I was stubborn as hell.
Henry had understood early on that hard work was the key to success.
You know, repetition is key. Repetition, I always say, creates habit. For me, it was always trying to be the best version that I can be every day.
Henry realized that if he didn't work hard, someone else would succeed in his place.
Big clubs and big coaches don't wait for nobody.
Although Henry rose quickly in Monaco, he always remained grounded and self-critical.
Since I'm 13, I never had a normal life.
Despite his rapid rise, Henry was not free of challenges. He had to assert himself into an environment that was demanding not only because of football expectations, but also because of its special social and geographical situation. The low number of spectators at home games and the lack of public support made it difficult to establish himself as a player in Monaco.
I just wanted to impress and do well.
But Henry overcame these hurdles and, despite all difficulties, established himself as one of the most promising talents in French football. During the 1995-1996 season, however, Henry contributed to play only a minor role at Monaco, partly due to the cautious approach of the new coach, Jean Tijana.
They put me on the wing. I felt comfortable playing on the wing.
Tijana, a former player of the French national team, recognized Henry's potential and promoted him carefully to ensure that he would not be overwhelmed too early. Henry often played as a super sub, came on as a substitute to punish tired opponents, and was gently introduced to the challenges of the First Division. The French under-18s team, in which Henry played, won the UEFA European Championship in 1996. Henry was the captain of that team and already showed leadership qualities at a young age, even if he was not the loud type who drove his team with words. His technical leadership and his deep understanding of the game made him a valuable team member.
I was always a thinker on the field and trying to see where I could, as a team, we could hurt a team. How you transcend and what you can transmit, and also how you inspire people. That matters.
Despite the success with the youth national team and his growing popularity, Henry's place in Monaco's first team initially remained uncertain. Tijana continued to rely on more experienced players, and Henry had to be patient while continuing to develop. Thierry Henry felt that everything in his life was finally coming together. Only 20 years old, he was already one of France's most promising players.
You begin to wonder if there's anything this fella can't do.
He had won the league with Monaco, played in Europe, and had been invited by Aimé Jacquet to the national team training camp. He was young, ambitious, and seemed on the best path to the career of his dreams. But over the course of 1 year, he would learn more about the world of professional football than he wanted, a lesson that would change him forever.
What you fear will master you.
It all began promisingly. Henry played outstandingly that season and was celebrated by the media as the phenomenon.
He's a phenomenon, he's unbelievable.
Everyone seemed to admire him and his name was on everyone's lips. Success boosted him and it seemed as if nothing could stop him. Henry learned that Real Madrid were interested in him, one of the biggest clubs in the world. The thought of wearing the legendary white shirt of the Galacticos was tempting for the young player, but also frightening. It was an offer that seemed too good to be true. He initially called his father for advice. His father had always been the driving force behind his career, the one who had accompanied him since childhood and paved the way for him. But this time, Thierry instinctively felt that something was different. Tony advised him to do nothing for the moment. But behind the scenes, something bigger seemed to be going on. Thierry began to feel overwhelmed by it all. Real Madrid's interest, the contracts, the money, it was all too much, too fast. And there was this man, Michel Basilevic, who was somehow involved and pushed himself more and more into the negotiations. Thierry felt lost in a game he did not fully understand. Without his knowledge, talks between his father and representatives of Real Madrid had already been set in motion. It was said that a pre-contract has been signed and Thierry was suddenly no longer sure whom he could trust.
Hablando, de un momento que le convencimos, llegó a firmar el contrato y cuando le teníamos metido en el avión para venirse a Madrid.
All he wanted was to play football, but now he seemed to be pulled into a whirlpool of money and power that he could not control.
I just love to play football, that's what I do.
When he finally found out that his father had played a bigger role in these negotiations than he would have liked, Thierry's world collapsed. It was not only the business side, it was the trust he had in his father. He had always wanted the best for him. Thierry knew that, but now he doubted whether his father really understood what was the best for him.
How do you tell your dad that he needs to step aside in order for me to have my career? It's my life. I made him understand. Making sure that he was understanding that he couldn't come anymore. But, if he's asking me for some tickets, I wasn't maybe sending them at times or stuff like that, because talking was tough.
The pressure became unbearable. While Thierry tried to focus on playing football, he felt his world around him falling apart. Jean Tijana, his coach at Monaco, noticed that something was wrong and gave him a break. But Thierry could hardly recover. Between December and March, he barely played at all. And in the few minutes he was on the pitch, he was far from his best form. In the midst of all this turbulence, Thierry also had to realize that he worked in a business that could often be cold and ruthless. People he had trusted, like his father, had made decisions that put him into difficult situations. At the end of the day, it was Thierry himself who had to bear the responsibility. He understood that he was the only person he could truly trust.
Or it didn't help so much the human being. It did help the athlete. You prefer to be the athlete than the human being. Because then the athlete, it's easier, you know what to do.
When FIFA eventually launched an investigation and imposed a punishment, Thierry could only be glad that the consequences were not even more than severe. He escaped a possible 2-year ban, but had to pay a large fine. After all that, nothing was as it had been before. The young Henry, who had once stepped into the world full of trust, had lost his innocence. He had learned that the game on the pitch was something simpler than what went on outside the stadiums. After the chaos surrounding his possible move to Real Madrid was finally resolved in autumn of 1997, Henry slowly found his form again. It was not easy, but his coach at Monaco, Jean Tijana, had protected him when the club had almost been ready to sell him. Although the relationship between Henry and Tijana was often tense, Thierry began to understand that the coach was helping him become a better player, even if he could not admit it at the time.
Back in the days, I was stubborn as hell.
He fought his way through and finished the season strongly with 10 goals and 13 assists. But the real focus was on the national team and the upcoming World Cup. Aimé Jacquet, the coach of the French national team, was cautious in selecting players. Henry got his chance in October 1997 when he made his debut the friendly against South Africa. But his performance was anything but outstanding. Henry was nervous, felt the pressure to hold his own against experienced players like Desailly, and could not play freely. After that, Jacquet left him out of the squad for 6 months. It hurt, especially because his close friend David Trezeguet was being called up more and more frequently. Thierry hid his insecurity well, but inside, the question gnawed at him. Was he good enough for the national team?
My attention to details comes from the fact that it was always what I didn't do that mattered.
On top of that, a long-term ankle injury slowed him down even more, but he fought his way back. With strong performances in the Champions League for Monaco, including 2 important goals against Bayer Leverkusen, he attracted Jacquet's attention again. When he then learned in May 1998 that he had made the extended squad for the World Cup, he was relieved, but still far from certain. The weeks at Clairfontaine training camp were tense. Everyone knew that Jacquet still had to cut a few players. And Henry felt unrest among his teammates. He could not sleep at night and hardly dared to speak to the experienced players. Then, finally, the news came. He was in the final squad.
Parce qu'il nous a donné une vision, il a visualisé quelque chose. Il nous a permis de rêver. Il nous a fait croire qu'on pouvait gagner la Coupe du Monde.
On the day of the first match against South Africa, Jacquet came to him and said he would be in the starting 11. Henry could hardly believe it.
France's hopes for the 1998 World Cup were pinned on the mercurial midfielder.
The excitement was huge, but so was the nervousness. And when he walked out the Stade Vélodrome and sang the Marseillaise, he felt incredibly proud.
Then you have to understand that it's about winning no matter what.
The match went well, even if he could not shine for a long time the way he had wished. But then, in stoppage time, he scores his first goal for France.
It is newborn Thierry Henry who scores France's third and his first World Cup goal.
Et ma première en Coupe du Monde aussi. C'était contre l'Afrique du Sud aussi, à Marseille. C'est passé vite fait dans ma tête. Parce que l'émotion elle était tellement forte que ça m'a ramené à ces émotions-là, donc c'est passé un peu dans ma tête.
I was pretty happy, more than happy. Even I was just, my dad was at the stadium, my brother was there. It was just crazy scoring in the World Cup at home in front of the family.
The second match against Saudi Arabia went even better. Henry scored 2 goals and helped France reach the round of 16. In that moment, he finally felt like a part of the team. And even though he came off the bench in the quarterfinal against Italy, he was proud to have contributed.
That's the dream of every little kid who loves football. And then suddenly you are in your dream.
When it went to a penalty shootout, he stepped up with the self-confidence he had not known before and scored. The last matches were nerve-wracking. Against Croatia in the semi-final, he had sat on the bench, but the tension was almost unbearable. Lilian Thuram, normally not known for his goal threat, scored both goals that took France to the final. Henry was now only one step away from becoming world champion.
Mais quand tu visualises quelque chose et tu rêves et tu y penses, ça tourne en général souvent de ton côté si tu t'es bien préparé.
He watched the final game against Brazil from the bench, and even though he did not play, he felt the full intensity of the match. When the final whistle blew and France had won 3-0, it was a feeling he would never forget. It was the crowning achievement of an incredibly difficult year, a year of doubt, setbacks, and ultimately triumph.
You're winning the World Cup. I don't care about not playing in the final, playing in the final. If I was more of an established player, that would have been another story. As a youngster, telling me I'm going to leave the World Cup at the end of the game, that was just too much.
Henry was now a world champion, and he knew that this success would change him forever. It is not uncommon for players to struggle to return to the regular league after a major international success. But with Henry, this process was particularly dramatic. There were speculations that Henry, after a transfer to Arsenal had fallen through in the summer of 1998, deliberately reduced his performance at Monaco in order to force a move.
You just want to see your limits. You just want to know how far you can go.
For me, it was always trying to be the best version that I can be every day.
In the French national team, Henry also lost ground. After a friendly against Austria in August 1998, in which he was still in the starting 11, he found himself on the bench for the qualifier against Iceland. From then on, it took almost 18 months before he was considered again for the senior national team. At the same time, the difficult relationship between Henry and Monaco coach Jean Tijana worsened. When the opportunity for a move to Italy to Juventus Turin arose, Henry seized it without hesitation in January 1999. The transfer surprised many, including his own advisors. But the move to Juventus was difficult from the start. Henry found himself in a tactically conservative environment that did not suit his strengths. He was used on the left side, which robbed him of his natural attacking powers. Despite some good performances, such as the game against Lazio, he could not establish himself at Juventus. After only 6 months at Juventus, in which he scored only 3 goals, Henry's time in Turin was over. But even if the time at Juventus was seen as a failure, it was an important step in Henry's development.
Sometimes destiny is weird. After the game, that Juve game, end of the season, I went back to Paris, and who was on the plane? You can ask him. The boss was on the plane. And that's when I told him I would love to join Arsenal.
The time in Italy was instructive, but it ultimately led him back to his desired destination, Arsenal. Thierry Henry's first step in England was, as many of his critics emphasized, hesitant.
First of all, I always wanted to play for Arsenal. The guys that obviously played before me gave me that desire to wear the Arsenal shirt. Manu Petit, Patrick Vieira, and Nicolas Anelka gave me that little desire, that little thing that I had in my heart. And also, I wanted to work with Arsene Wenger again.
When I first arrived, I will always remember I had to fight with, to get in the team, I had to fight with Davor Schuker, Nyanko Kanu, Dennis Bergkamp, or Marco Overmars if I was going to play on the left. And coming after Nicolas Anelka. And that wasn't an easy one.
Although he came with impressive credentials, world champion, top scorer of the French national team at the 1998 World Cup, his start in the Premier League was as dazzling as expected. For many, this was no surprise, since foreign players often had difficulties adapting to the physically demanding nature of English football.
You don't arrive somewhere just with your name and you impress the guys in the dressing room, especially those guys. You have to show them that you can fight for them.
Henry came to Arsenal after a problematic period at Juventus, where he could not flourish in the tactics of the Italian Serie A. Arsenal paid what was at that time a record-like fee of £11.5 million to sign him, a major vote of confidence from Arsene Wenger, who believed in Henry's potential as a central striker, even if Henry himself was unsure.
Arsene Wenger, you've described him in the past, or people have described him as a mentor, as a father figure almost. How would you describe your relationship with him?
No, it is, same thing, the same type of relationship you can have with a dad.
Wenger's plan to move Henry from the wing into the center of attack, a process that required time and patience.
And then he said to me, you'll do way better if you play in the middle. And I said, that's a long time, I didn't play in the middle. Do you think, it's the right thing to do, right move? He said, yeah, you will see, it might take time, but at the end we will see if it happens or not.
The way I was playing at Arsenal, that's exactly the same way I was playing as a youngster. I forgot about goals. My mind wasn't set on goals. Because when you play as a winger, you're kind of like, you have to assist the game, you have to work and help the left back. So you're kind of like, oh, that's not my job to score. So you lose that killer instinct.
So I started to adjust my game to them.
I had to relearn how, if I can say, how to kill.
The first weeks in England were frustrating for Henry. He was often brought on as a substitute, but initially he could neither score goals nor produce great performances.
People think about my career at Arsenal. They always think that I arrived and I started to score goals and everything was nice.
After 6 matches without a goal, criticism grew louder, and doubts about his high price and his ability to succeed in the Premier League spread.
Big clubs and big coaches don't wait for nobody.
But Henry's breakthrough came unexpectedly in a match against Southampton in September 1999, when, after being substituted on in the 81st minute, he fired a spectacular long-range shot into the top corner. It was his first goal for Arsenal, a moment of triumph that, however, came without a big emotional outburst. Instead, Henry celebrated with a military salute, a gesture he had adopted from his time in Monaco. After that goal, Henry slowly began to flourish. In the following months, he scored a total of 13 goals, including decisive strikes against Sunderland, Derby County and Deportivo La Coruña. Henry had overcome his doubts and established himself as Arsenal's main striker. His playing style, combining speed and technical skill, was a new challenge for English defenders who were used to physically robust strikers.
Certainly this lad reacts like lightning there.
How do you deal with that kind of raw pace that Thierry Henry brings to their attack?
He was not only a striker, but a player who shaped Arsenal's entire attacking play. Wenger had only not established Henry as a key player, he had built the team's style of play around him. Arsenal began to attack faster and more creatively, with Henry's pace and his ability to score from any position playing a central role.
They can't get him, he's too quick.
How do you play against them? When you've got pace and intelligence, I think that's the perfect marriage.
Over the course of the 1999-2000 season, Henry became one of the most fierce strikers in the Premier League. His transformation from a winger at Monaco and Juventus into a central attacker at Arsenal was complete. By the end of the season, he had scored 17 goals and was Arsenal's top scorer. What began as an uncertain start developed into a success story that influenced not only Arsenal, but English football as a whole. Henry's performances at Arsenal drew the attention of the French media, and he was soon called up again for the national team. After a long exile from the senior team, he returned in March 2000 with a goal against Scotland and finally secured his place in the squad for the upcoming European Championship. In London, Henry discovered an environment in which he could develop not only athletically, but also personally. The tougher competition in the Premier League demanded more of him physically, which he learned to appreciate.
You are the big club, man. Competition will happen.
Henry finished his first season in England with 26 goals, more than ever before in his career. Despite the unfortunate loss in the UEFA Cup final against Galatasaray in May 2000, it was a very successful first season. He adapted quickly to the physical toughness and high tempo of the Premier League and was able to shake off the doubts that had plagued him in Italy and France. His true confirmation of his talent came during the Euros 2000. Henry delivered impressive performances there, including a spectacular solo goal against Denmark and further goals against Czech Republic and Spain. During the European Championship, Henry solidified his role as an indispensable player for the French national team and proved that he had belonged among the best forwards in Europe. Together with Anelka, Henry formed a strike partnership that was dangerous for any defense. Despite his success as a winger, he also proved his versatility and cutting edge in a central role. France won the European Championship as reigning world champion.
Ça se prépare, tu mets tout ce qu'il y a pour pouvoir y arriver. Mais on parle pas de la gagne. Quand tu mets ce maillot, c'est dans le titre, pour moi personnellement.
After the European Championship, Henry's status in both France and at Arsenal was unquestioned. In the years that followed, his relationship with Arsène Wenger continued to develop. Wenger had accompanied Henry's development from the beginning and knew that Henry's talent was far from exhausted. Although Henry scored fewer goals in the 2000-2001 season than the year before, this was less of a sign of decline and more proof that Henry was still working on solidifying his role in an evolving Arsenal team. The 2000-2001 season was a transitional phase for Arsenal and Henry. Wenger began to rebuild the team step by step as some of the experienced players slowly neared the end of their careers. At the same time, Wenger brought new talent into the team. In this phase, Henry produced some of his best moments, including a spectacular volley against Manchester United in October 2000, considered one of the best goals of his career. Despite the highs and the lows of that season, both for him personally and for Arsenal, Henry continued to develop impressively. Off the pitch, Henry found calm and stability in London. He bought a house in Hampstead and surrounded himself with close friends and former teammates. This stability in his private life certainly contributed to him becoming even better on the pitch. London gave him what he had not found in Turin or Monaco, a balance between his football life and his personal freedom. Since his move to Arsenal, he had already become a dominant player who, with incredible speed, precision and elegance, ran through Premier League defenses. And between 2001 and 2004, it seemed he reached new milestones in every match he played. Goals came almost every few seconds. Records fell, and Henry broke Ian Wright's record for the most goals in European competitions for Arsenal.
One Arsenal legend congratulates another. The Frenchman here has overtaken Wright's record, and they are the two most accurate gunners of all time, having hit the target between them 371 times for Arsenal.
The first time I heard about Arsenal Football Club was because of Ian Wright.
He also scored his 100th league goal, milestones that made him one of the best players in the club's history and brought him close to legends like George Best and Eric Cantona.
How they saluted the second fastest man to a Premiership century.
He's got to be the best player in the world at the moment. There can't be anybody playing better.
What made Henry special was his understated elegance. He was the embodiment of coolness both on and off the pitch. With every step and every shot, he seemed to redefine the art of football effortlessly. In England, especially within the Arsenal family, he became an idol. Fans adored him not only for his goals, but also for his personality. Self-confident, but not arrogant. Humble, and at the same time, full of pride in his performance. It seemed as he floated through England's stadiums on a magic carpet.
There's only one team for me, in my heart. I mean, everybody knows the love and the affection I have for Arsenal. It took me a while to understand what that club meant and everything. And
if you want to be up there and stay in the heart of the fans and anyone, even for yourself, looking at yourself in the mirror, I've won. We have won.
But while Henry was celebrated in England as a superstar, his relationship with France was far more complicated. In the national team, he never seemed to have the same freedom as he did in Arsenal. Although he shone for the Gunners, he often struggled with expectations and the pressure of having to assert himself against the overwhelming shadow of Zinedine Zidane. Zidane, the hero of France's 1998 World Cup winning team, had secured his place in the heart of the nation, while Henry repeatedly had to prove that he was more than just a brilliant striker. In 2002, Henry experienced one of the darkest chapters of his career when the French national team failed miserably at the World Cup in Japan and South Korea. France, packed with world stars and entering as title holders, went out in the group stage without scoring a single goal. Henry, who was sent off for a frustrated foul on the second group match, became the focus of the criticism, while Zidane, the injured star of the team, was spared by the media. Henry was made the scapegoat. In France, the image grew of the overrated star, who could not carry the national team.
And you have to understand that it's about winning no matter what. So
because I want to win at all costs, and anything that I do, I want to win.
I never wanted to let my teammates down. I always wanted to please them. I always wanted to please the fans. I always wanted to please...
Despite the disappointment with the national team, Henry continued to build his status at Arsenal. Between 2001 and 2004, he became the undisputed icon of the club. In these 3 years, Henry was nearly unstoppable. In 107 Premier League matches, he scored 70 goals and missed only 7 matches. His goals were not only numerous, but also extraordinarily beautiful. His solo goal against Tottenham in November 2002, in which he covered half of the pitch and then scored, became a symbol of his talent and was later immortalized in a stadium outside the Emirates Stadium. But Henry was not only a goalscorer. In the 02-03 season, he delivered 23 assists, more than anyone else in the Premier League.
What the hell are you doing? Striker scores goals in the box! How am I going to make people understand the player that I am?
One thing that I was very proud of is people always used to talk about my goals, but I always used to put out there how many assists that I was doing every year.
For him, prepping goals was just as important as scoring them.
You could see me smile more when I was giving a goal or when I was scoring. Because the sharing thing, it's an important thing, especially in a collective sport.
But people never used to see. When I used to give an assist, I always used to smile.
The 2003-04 season would go down in history as the season of the Invincibles. Arsenal remained unbeaten in all 38 Premier League matches, a feat no team had achieved for more than 100 years.
It was an everyday process. To make sure that we're going to stay unbeaten.
Henry scored 30 goals and once again secured the title of the league's top scorer.
What I liked about that team is the unselfishness of everyone. Like everybody was willing to give the ball to the guy in a better position.
This season was unforgettable, not only because of the championship, but also because the way Arsenal played.
The hardest part for me during that run is when you're already champion, when we clinch the title at the Lane. To keep your composure and your commitment when you actually go on the field and you're like, we don't need to win.
Wenger called it fantasy football, and Henry was the magician pulling the strings.
They've got the most effective forward that there's been in British football as long as I can remember.
So he won the league with us when we stayed Invincible. He said to me, okay, where is the party tonight? We're going and everything. I said, I'm not going to no party tonight. He said, yeah, but everybody's going. I said, yeah, but I'm not everybody. Stayed home. He said, why? I said, we have the Euro. I'm going home. Everyone went to the party, I didn't.
A particular highlight of that season was the Champions League match against Inter Milan in November 2003. Arsenal were close to elimination after losing the first leg at home with 3 goals. But Henry led his team to a spectacular 5-1 win at the San Siro, scoring 2 goals and showing the world that he was more than a striker, he was a playmaker, an artist on the pitch.
Like the last 2 games where we was a little bit tired, but we needed someone to do something special. And Thierry always performed on the big games.
But there remained an unfinished mission, winning the Champions League. In 2003-04, it seemed as if Arsenal were ready to conquer the crown of European football as well, but a bitter defeat against Chelsea in the quarterfinal ended that dream. It was a moment that showed that even the greatest teams can fail, and that beauty and success in football do not always go hand in hand. As brilliant as those years at Arsenal were, the shadow of his performances for the French national team remained. The comparison with Zidane haunted him constantly. Although he scored in the Euro 2004, he was often criticized for not showing the same magic as he did at Arsenal. Nevertheless, Henry's position as favorite for the Ballon d'Or seemed cemented. Statistically, he was superior to most of his competitors in 2004. 46 goals and 16 assists in a total of 57 matches, his electrifying playing style and his ability to decide matches almost single-handedly had made him admired across Europe. The competition for the Ballon d'Or became clearer. Andrei Shevchenko, the star striker of AC Milan, had also an outstanding season, dominating Serie A and leading Milan to the championship. Deco, the brilliant midfielder from Porto, won the Champions League with his team and reached the final of the European Championship. Ronaldinho, the charismatic Brazilian at Barcelona, mesmerized the football world with his unique style, although he did not win any major titles in 2004. As the Ballon d'Or vote approached, discussions grew louder. Many were sure that Henry was the best choice because of his impressive goals and assist numbers and his contributions to the Invincibles' triumph, but there were also voices that emphasized the importance of international tournaments and the Champions League more strongly, areas in which Deco and Shevchenko had excelled. When the results were announced, the surprise was huge. Henry finished in 4th place. Shevchenko won the Ballon d'Or, followed by Deco and Ronaldinho. Henry, despite his outstanding performances, did not make the podium.
But like, even if it's a card game, if our player is to win something like a title, I want a trophy, I want to win, I want something at the end that I'm going to be able to lift, or you got to give me something.
If you said to me at the time, let's say throughout my 8 years Arsenal, we didn't win the league or didn't win whatever, and I'd won maybe Player of the Year once or something like that, I would have given that back for a title.
The 2004 season began promisingly. Arsenal beat Manchester United in the Community Shield without their captain Vieira and won their first 9 league matches, with Henry in outstanding form. His legendary backheel goal against Charlton was another example of his creative brilliance. But on October 24, 2004, the turning point came when Arsenal lost 0-2 at Manchester United and the invincibility ended. This match was not only a defeat, it was a brutal blow to the team's morale. From that moment on, the dynamic of the season changed. A run of draws and defeats caused the team to fall back.
We went on a run of not winning for 4 games. That was the first time for a long time in the history of the club.
Arsenal fought to stay in the race, and while Henry continued to score regularly, the team became increasingly dependent on him. This Henry dependency became more and more obvious. During the difficult winter months, Henry often pulled the team out of the misery alone, but it was not enough to challenge Chelsea for the title. Arsenal finished the season as runners-up, but Henry's performances remained impressive. With 25 Premier League goals, he won the Golden Boot for the 2nd year in a row. But while Henry continued to shine on the pitch, the Arsenal team around him began to crumble. The departures of Patrick Vieira and other key players, as well as the inability to find adequate replacements, put a strain on them.
It was kind of weird, I'll be honest, because we lost a lot of players also. Losing Patrick wasn't easy. Patrick was the heart of that team. Well respected in the dressing room and outside the dressing room. So
2005 and 06 became an even bigger challenge for Henry. With a team in transition and many new inexperienced players, he was forced to take on more and more responsibility. While Wenger built a young team, Henry became the central figure and carried the team on his shoulders. Henry, who was now also appointed captain, was not a traditional leader who inspired through words. He led through his actions on the pitch, through his technique, his goals, and his tireless work ethic. The 2005-06 season was also Arsenal's last season at the legendary Highbury Stadium. Henry, who called the stadium his home, said goodbye in fitting fashion. On the final match day against Wigan, he scored a hat-trick and kissed the turf as he dropped to his knees after the 3rd goal. It was an emotional farewell, not only for Henry, but for all Arsenal fans witnessing the end of an era.
I always regarded Highbury as my garden. Nobody will ever beat my record there. I knew I was never going to come back there. Something did die that day in me.
But the season was not over yet. Arsenal had surprisingly qualified for the Champions League final, the first time in the club's history. Henry, who had never stopped dreaming of winning the Champions League, now faced the greatest challenge of his career.
It wasn't an easy one, to be honest. And then we went on a little run, especially in the Champions League.
The road to the final had been anything but easy for Arsenal. Even in February 2006, the idea that Arsenal could make it to the Champions League final seemed illusionary. The decisive moment of this Champions League campaign came in the round of 16 against Real Madrid.
At the Bernabeu against Zidane, Beckham and Ronaldo, there will be no hiding place for the Londoners' backstump side.
When Henry humiliated the Galacticos with a sole run over half the pitch and scored the only goal of the game, it was a typical Henry moment.
This is Thierry Henry, away from Ronaldo and Mariha and Gucci, and still Thierry Henry! 1-0!
It was this match that brought the team together around Henry and gave them the feeling that they could truly achieve something great. In the matches that followed, the team rose above itself. Against Juventus, they neutralized Patrick Vieira, their former captain. In the semi-final against Villarreal, Jens Lehmann saved Arsenal's ticket to the final with a save from Juan Roman Riquelme's penalty. When the final finally came, Henry carried the hopes of Arsenal's fans. But despite the strong start, he could not take the decisive chances.
Brought him down, may well produce a card.
I think 11 against 11, they would have been in trouble. They were already in trouble 10 against 11.
Henry with the free kick. Campbell is there! Arsenal take the lead in the Champions League final. It's to go. Iniesta plays a lovely ball through. Larson. Eto'o! He's beaten Almunia. Barcelona are level. And it's Samuel Eto'o. Gap though. Belletti. Tight angle, but it doesn't matter. And Giuliano Belletti has literally ripped the trophy out of Arsenal's.
I will always be gutted because we didn't win it, and I felt like I didn't do enough in that final to make my team win. So I will always think about it. That's always something that I think about. That will always go through my mind every 2 days or every 3 days, because that's the thing the club was missing.
The defeat hit him hard because he knew how close Arsenal had come to the biggest trophy that he still lacked. Shortly afterward, he signed a new contract that would tie him to Arsenal until 2010, a sign of his loyalty, even though numerous offers from top clubs like Barcelona and Real Madrid were on the table. Henry's decision to stay at Arsenal was received with enthusiasm by the fans. But the following season brought new challenges for Henry and Arsenal. The injuries that plagued him again and again in recent years became more frequent and more severe. In the Premier League, Arsenal fell behind the title race, and Henry himself was able to play fewer and fewer matches due to chronic back problems. These were only brief bright spots in an otherwise injury-ridden season.
You need to love pain to be an athlete.
On June 12, 2007, France Football reported that Henry's move to FC Barcelona was as good as sealed. Only a few days later it was official. Henry left Arsenal and moved to FC Barcelona for a transfer fee of 24 million euros. Although this step did not come across as a surprise to many Arsenal fans, it still shocked them. On June 26, 2007, Henry was officially presented as a new Barcelona player at the Camp Nou, where Henry had previously tended to avoid the fuss around his person.
I arrived at Barcelona, I arrived injured, I was divorcing, adapting to a new life, new language, new team, new way of playing. People don't care.
Barcelona is almost like the national team of Catalonia. When we're not performing, they're gonna hammer you. They signed the guy from Arsenal, so all the times they want to see the guy from Arsenal. Don't expect the Henry from Arsenal.
Expectations in Barcelona were high, but Henry's first season was disappointing. Although he scored 19 goals in all competition, he was often used on the left wing, which did not suit him.
It's not what I used to do maybe at Arsenal, 30 goals and 20 plus assists per season. It's still 14 goals and 10 assists. So as a winger, that is not a bad ratio.
Henry was used to being the central striker who dictated the game, but with Samuel Eto'o and Lionel Messi in the team, it was difficult to take that role in Barcelona.
I'm happy, but you're never happy when there is no good what you were expecting.
Just imagine I like to please people. And everything, everywhere was a no. I wasn't playing well, you're divorcing, so I'm feeling I'm letting my daughter down, I'm letting the fans down, I'm letting my friends down, myself down, everybody down. Football wasn't really my priority. You know when you swear that if you get married, you never get divorced because, you know, and you know very little about life, obviously. I know, this is exactly what happened to me. What are you doing? I'm letting people down.
The media and fans began to criticize him, and the team dynamics in the dressing room also turned against him. He was often portrayed as part of the French clique within the team, which further increased tensions. Nevertheless, Henry kept fighting and in the 2008-2009 season contributed significantly to Barcelona's success with 26 goals in all competitions.
Some teams were not even seeing the ball or not even passing the halfway line sometimes because the pressure was so intense that they didn't even have the chance to put their head up to pick a player.
Pep is the only manager that made me understand that pressing is enjoyable.
That season, Henry experienced his greatest triumph on the European stage. Barcelona won the treble, the Spanish League, the Cup, and the Champions League. Henry was part of one of the best teams there has ever been, and although he was not always in the spotlight, his contribution was decisive. After winning the Champions League on May 27, 2009, in which Henry took part despite a knee injury, it seemed as if he had finally achieved what he had long strived for. But this was to be Henry's last great moment at Barcelona. In the following season, he lost his starting place to Pedro. Henry increasingly found himself on the bench and became more and more a peripheral figure in the team.
At the big club, you don't wait and don't act like you're surprised when they kick you out.
On November 18th, 2009, in the second leg of the World Cup qualifier between France and Ireland at the Stade de France, something happens that will go down in history forever. In the 103rd minute, Thierry Henry handles the ball and thus enables Willian Gallas to score the goal that secures France's participation in the 2010 World Cup, but this handball, overlooked by referee Martin Hansen, causes a worldwide outcry, especially in Ireland, where fans feel robbed of their dream.
I didn't directly handball the ball. I did handball the ball, but I didn't do it on purpose.
Obviously it's cheating because it's not part of the game, doing an handball.
Well, I didn't do it on purpose, so sorry.
Although France had qualified for the World Cup, the celebrations were muted, and Henry's reputation was damaged at an instant. Even in France, which should have benefited from qualification, there was a feeling of shame. In this turbulent time, Henry withdrew into himself and avoided public appearances. While training in Barcelona, he was relentlessly booed by fans during a league match against Athletic Bilbao.
It is amazing to be cheered on by 100,000 people in the stadium, or less, or a bit more sometimes. But sometimes it's a nightmare when you get booed by them.
Despite success with Barcelona, they would later win the Champions League again that season. Henry seemed emotionally shaken.
This is where it becomes difficult. But then after that, the abuse that I got, I received letters, death threats, because I got scared. I put a bodyguard for my daughter. I never shared that, but you know, I'm sharing it now. That was hard. You don't want your daughter to be targeted.
Henry's international career reached a low point in 2010 at the World Cup in South Africa. After the Hand of Frog scandal, his reputation was already severely damaged. In the warm-up matches for the World Cup, coach Raymond Domenech increasingly put him on the bench and took the captaincy away from him, giving it to Patrice Evra. During the tournament, France delivered weak performances and went out after disappointing matches against Uruguay and Mexico. Internal conflicts escalated when Nicolas Anelka was expelled and the team refused to train in protest. Henry, once a leader, remained passive and took on no leadership role, which was held against him. These events marked the glorious end of Henry's time with the national team. After the World Cup, he retired and moved to New York Red Bulls, thus ending his international career. After keeping fit at the London club during the MLS offseason, Arsène Wenger decided to bring him back on a short loan.
They wanted to see me again. I wanted to see them again. For the first time, I felt like I was with the fans.
Although Henry modestly announced that he only wanted to help and did not want to return as a hero, that is exactly what he became.
Return to Arsenal. So, the ball for Henry. Thierry Henry!
For the first time, and I felt human.
The right ending. But you always like, you know, especially new movies now on DVDs, you always like have like other ending. So maybe we can do that.
World Cup, European champion, FA Cup, Premier League, La Liga, Copa del Rey, you name it, the list goes on.
United out of the cup. Arsenal won. Leeds United